In the previous lab, MusicPlayer 3, we created this nice user interface for the Music Player that you see on your right side in the emulator here. Now, in this Music Player application, we were able to play only one single song. Now, we would try to extend the Music Player by allowing the user the ability to choose from a list of songs and also display the song title on the screen up here. So we put that into place in the user interface, but we never activated it in the previous lab. So let's start out by doing that first. So we will activate the song title so that whatever song is being played, the title of the song will be displayed on the screen up there. So to do that, we'll go ahead and create a new function here called StartSong, and then it'll have two incoming parameters. Index and title. Okay. Now, in the previous version of the music activity, we had two lines here which I said start and initialize the music player so that it can play a song. So I'm going to now cut those lines and then drag them down into the StartSong method that I just created. Because if I want to be able to play any particular song, I just want to call this function, then supply the information and let that function start the particular song. Okay, so when I do that, I have to go back to the onCreate method and then call the StartSong method to supply it with the information of the song that I need to play. I have used two variables here, song index and song title, which carry information about the current song being played. And they have been pre-initialized to a set of values here. So we are going to use that as the starting song whenever the music player begins executing on the screen here. So in here, I will simply call StartSong with song index and song title. So these two, I am making use of them here. Now you recall that when we included the song title here, this was a text view, and so we would be able to now get a reference to the text view in our code. So in order to do that, I have to declare another variable private text view song title text. Okay, now this particular function, again, as you recall, when you see a cross there, you need to import the appropriate library so that it's it can be used in the program. So I am going to now get a reference to the text view that holds the song title. So let me go ahead and say song title text view, find view by id r.id dot, and you see the song title ID there, so I'm going to make use of that in this particular case. So let me write down the comment, get a reference to the text view in the UI, user interface. Now, once I have a reference to the text view, I can change the string that is being displayed in the text view. We have seen this already in the Hello Friend application earlier. So what I do is inside the StartSong, whenever the StartSong is called, I'm also supplying an index which I use to get a handle to the file that the MP3 file that corresponds to the particular song. Also, I'm supplying a title which I can display in the text view on the screen. So in here, inside the StartSong, whenever it is called, I'm going to say set text, and then I would say title. Now, this is all the modification that is required for me to be able to display the title of the song being played on the text view. Okay, with this modification, let's go ahead and test the application to make sure that we are actually able to display the name of the song being played. So when the application starts out and when we start playing the song, at that point, the song will start playing on the in the music player, and then you also see that the title of the song is being displayed up there. So that basically is the first segment of this lab, where we would modify the music activity in order to enable us to display the name of the song on the song title. Now, in addition, I mentioned that we would be extending this example to enable us to display a list of songs and let the user choose one of those songs. Now, for your convenience, I have already loaded 2 MP3 files into the MusicPlayer application. Now, this is one way of including multiple songs into your application. Of course, this is not the way music player applications work on your mobile device. Instead, they would actually scan your SD card and your storage for any MP3 files that are available, and then they will make a list of them and so on. Later on in future labs, we will actually extend this example to enable us to do that. But for the moment, let's keep it simple, and then we will simply include 2 example applications right up here that enable us to be able to show the functionality of letting the user choose one or more of songs that are available to be played out on the screen. So here you can see that I have 2 different songs included, 2 different MP3 players included here. Any music or sound files that you include in Android have to be put into this folder called the raw folder. Okay, so that's why the MP3 files are included in the raw folder. But when you include them, Android automatically creates the appropriate reference to these particular MP3 players within the code. Okay. Now, getting back to our example, let's just see how we can use these 2 songs to create a list and then display the list in the screen, and then show let the user choose between the songs. Normally, when you need to provide users with the ability to select something in Android, we would make use of a user interface which is supported in Android called as the ListView user interface. The ListView basically displays a list of items and then allows you to select one of them. And the ListView is also supported explicitly by a specific kind of activity in Android called as the ListActivity. So we're going to make use of both of these in order to enable us to support the display of multiple songs, a list of songs available, and let the user choose one of those songs. So to do that, let's first go to the user interface, and then we will include a button which, when the user clicks on it, will invoke a list of songs that are available for the user to play. So to do that, what I will first do is to include a horizontal linear layout right below the song title, and set the layout parameters to span. Set the layout parameters including the width to match parents. Okay, and then I will set the gravity of this to align the buttons included to the right side. In addition, in that particular list, in that linear layout, inside that linear layout, I am also going to give a little bit of padding around it so that the screen looks, the display of the buttons looks a little neat. Now after that, let me pull in a image button into this list view here, and then for this image button I will simply call it button playlist. And so there you go, the playlist button comes in. Again, as we have done before for the playlist button, we're going to set the background to null. And in addition, I'm going to name this button as playlist so that it's it can be referenced inside the code there. Instead of playlist, I will, because I will use the word playlist elsewhere. So let me name it button playlist so that I can reference it inside the code there. Okay, so button playlist created here. Now, what we need to do is enhance the code such that when this button is clicked, it will result in a list of songs being displayed on the screen. So as I mentioned earlier, when you need to create lists and display them on the screen, Android provides the list view, which you can easily, which comes packed along with a special kind of an activity called as a list activity. For a list activity, by default, the screen layout would be a list view. So that makes it a lot more easier because there are many circumstances where you need to display a list of items. So the list view, list activity is very, very useful for that purpose. Now, what are we supposed to do? We first get a reference to this button playlist, and then when the user clicks on that, the OnItemClickListener should start another activity which displays the list of the songs. Okay, so going back to, after saving main.xml, let me go back to the music activity, and in here, after the song title, what I will do is I will get a reference to the image button that I just created. Before I do that, let me declare a variable here called as button playlist, which is of type image button, so that I can make use of that in my code here. So I'm going to get a reference to the playlist button and declare the OnItemClickListener. Okay, let's first get the reference to the playlist button. So I would say button playlist equal to, since that is a button of image button type, so I say image button, find view by ID, r dot id dot, and then we see that we have the button playlist in there. So select that. Now once you have a reference to the button, then next you need to declare the OnItemClickListener for the button. Now here I will demonstrate to you a different way of specifying an OnItemClickListener. Instead of creating a separate listener and then listing it out there, I'm going to include the OnItemClickListener code directly into the specification here. So to do that, I would say button playlist set OnItemClickListener. Okay, and then now obviously I need to declare the OnItemClickListener in here. So in here, that variable is supposed to point to the OnItemClickListener. So previously we used to just put this here, and then since we have declared the OnItemClickListener as in the activities definition up there, we were able to use a OnItemClickListener directly there. Another way, if you have a specific OnItemClickListener for a specific button which doesn't fit into the normal way that you used for recognizing the remaining buttons, you can simply declare it directly here. So I can say new view dot OnItemClickListener. Okay, and then when I create that OnItemClickListener and then declare it there, it'll automatically notice that there was a semicolon there which is causing the big cross to come up there. So I just deleted the semicolon because it is not needed when you enclose the code inside the parenthesis here. So what I am going to do next is I notice that inside the OnItemClickListener I have the OnItemClick method here. So I need to declare the information inside this OnItemClick method, or what I am supposed to do when that button is clicked. Okay, so when the button is clicked, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an intent which is new intent. Now whenever I need to create an intent and I want to start another activity, I would first have to specify from where I am calling. So I need to give the context. In this particular case, I would simply use this method called as get application context. Okay, so that way I'm using the application's context for specifying where I'm coming from. It doesn't matter what it is. We will look at what a context means later on in the course. For the moment, just leave it there. And then I'm going to declare a new class called as playlist class. Now this playlist class is the one that is going to help me to display the list of items on the screen. Now, when I create the playlist class, when I create the playlist activity, then it will display a list of items on the screen. Once the user clicks on any one of those items, I want to come back here to inform the music activity which specific song was selected by the user. To enable us to be able to call an activity and then let that activity return some value to you, you can start an activity in a way which facilitates this. And this way of starting activity is called as start activity for result. Okay, So I would use that method of starting this activity. Start activity for result I, which is the intent, and then I can specify a number here which would be used as the return code coming back from this playlist activity. So when the playlist activity returns the value to the music activity, it will include that return code 100 in coming back. So that way, for example, if the music activity starts 3 or 4 different activities, can start 3 or 4 different activities, when a return comes back, then I would be able to identify which particular activity is returning the value to me. Because later on, I will have to include a method in order to receive the results coming from an activity that I started, called as OnItemClickListener method in there. So we will add that method a little bit later. But let's now proceed to create the playlist method in here. So for the playlist method, as you can see, when I declare the intent, so before I proceed, so let me write down what I have just done. Start the, and once the user So basically that tells me exactly what I am doing at that point. So start the playlist activity, and once the user selects the song, you come back and return the information about the selected song to this particular activity. Okay, so with that change, I will now try to address this, this cross here. Why did this cross appear? This cross appeared because I'm calling this playlist class, but I have no declaration of that in my code there. So when I click on that, it says, of course, I will have to import intent because this is the first usage of it. And then it says create class playlist here. So let me go ahead and click on that. So that will help me to create the playlist class automatically. The playlist class would be of the type Android app and list activity type. Okay, and then I'll say finish, and then voila, I see the playlist activity appearing in the code up here. And then also correspondingly, this activity would be added into the manifest file. So when I click on the manifest file, I notice that when I look at the applications, I notice that the playlist activity has already been added to the manifest file. So I don't need to worry about the fact that I might forget adding the entry into the manifest file. Okay, so getting back to the, let me again cross-check to make sure that the playlist's activity's name has been properly declared here. Now, in this particular case, it has capitalized the L, but when I look back at my activity name is having only a lowercase l. So let me correct this to a small l. Otherwise, Android will complain later on, and then the application will exit because it has happened to me before. So now I know where to check for the problem. So now I have an empty playlist activity here of the type list activity. So I need to go in and fill in the code in here. Now, for the playlist activity, obviously I need to, because it's the activity of, it's the activity class type, I have to add in the onCreate method. That is one method that every activity requires to include. Okay, so let me go ahead and then look at the activities list here. Again, recall how I can come here. I can right click and then choose source and override implement method. So I see the onCreate here. So let me check on that. And then the code automatically gets inserted here. So this is one way to ensure that the proper syntax code is inserted into your code at the right place without you having to worry too much about properly inserting the code. Now, once I have that in place there, what more do I need? I need to be able to get a list of songs that are available for me within this particular application. So earlier I indicated that I have already put 2 MP3 songs in there. So let me create a simple string array to store the names of the two songs that I have included. So I would declare a string array of type song list, and then I would say, now I'm going to explain what I am typing here in a minute. I'd say get resources dot get string array and for the ID I'm going to type r dot array dot, and notice that I have something here called as songs. Okay, let's just click on that. Now, where did this come about? Where have I declared this information? Now, if you look at your resources file in here under values, you see this file called strings.xml. So if you open this file strings.xml, you can include a lot of information in here. You can declare commonly used strings here in XML format, and then you can use them within your code. So this way, if you are using a particular string at multiple places, then declaring it here, and then that way if you edit this string file, automatically all the places where it is used within the code, you don't have to go in and manually fix all of them. It is automatically taken care of. Now, the string XML file also allows me to declare a string array type here. So as you can see, I have one string array here with the name songs, and then I have 2 items in here within the string array. The 2 items are the names of the 2 songs that I've included in the raw folder here. In addition, I have declared another string array named file name, which basically contains the file names of these two MP3 files. So this I will make use of it in one of the later locations. So inside the resources, I have declared 2 string arrays. Now I'm creating in playlist, I'm creating a string array of name with the name song list, and then I'm initializing it from the string arrays that I have resources that I have declared inside the strings.xml file. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. So let me put in a comment to say exactly what I have just done there. Create a string array and initialize it with string array resources that I have declared in string.xml file. Now, once I have this list, then I know that I can make use of this within my code. Now, when I have a list activity, the list activity by default has a layout view called as list view. The list view basically displays a list of items that I declare. So in order to help me to do that, I need something called a ListAdapter. Now, to create a ListAdapter, there are many different ways of supplying ListAdapter. One, you can supply the ListAdapter from a string array that you create. You can create a ListAdapter from by referencing a database and then obtaining a bunch of records from the database and then filling it into the ListAdapter and so on. Later on, we will see how we can query a content provider to find the list of songs that are there on the device, and then from that construct a list view with the titles of all the songs. So that'll come later on in one of the later labs. For the moment, we have two songs. We have this string array that we just created where we store this information. So I'm going to simply say this and set ListAdapter. Okay, so by doing this, what I am telling Android is that I'm going to supply this activity with a ListAdapter which contains information that is used to fill in the list view that is going to be used to display the list of songs. Now, since I need a ListAdapter here, I have to create a ListAdapter. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create a new ListAdapter of the type ArrayAdapter of type string. Now, when I create an ArrayAdapter, I need to specify a few things in there for the ListAdapter so that it can properly create the list layout there. First and foremost, I need to specify how this particular list items are going to be laid out in the list view. So I need to supply a layout for that. So I will say r.layout. I don't have one there, but I'm going to create that in a short while. So I will have to create that. It's going to complain, and then I'll come back and fix that problem later. So I'll say r.layout.playlist item, and then I would, inside the playlist item, which is a layout, I would have a text view of type song title, and that is the text view that is going to display the song title in there. And the last thing that I need to supply is the string array that I just created. So I'm going to say song list, and then we will leave it there. Okay, now obviously you notice that Android is, the Eclipse is complaining, saying something is missing from this. So let me click on the arrow and then go in and say what I am supposed to fix here. So it says ListAdapter is not declared, so I'm going to declare that. The next one, it says import ArrayAdapter. I'll fix that. It's still complaining. Then I'll click on this, and then it says change to song title. No, that's not what I want to do. I'm going to leave it there, and then so I'm just going to ignore that for the moment. And for this last item, I need to create a field of type playlist item in the layout field. So I will have to create a new layout of type playlist item. Now, I remember that earlier we have done this for for Hello Friend and other examples. So I'll go to Layout, and then I'm going to create that particular layout on the screen. So I will call it playlistitem.xml. So how do you create a layout? You simply go to Layout and say right-click, and then New Android XML file, and then it will automatically come up with a prompt here. So I'm going to name that file as playlist item, and it would be of the linear layout type. Okay, and then click on finish. Okay, and this playlist item pops up here, and then when I look at the XML code, it says linear layout and so on, and then it says match parent vertical and so on. So we'll just leave it as such in here. Now, for this linear layout, I will set the gravity of this linear layout to center, so that whatever is enclosed inside this linear layout will be displayed at the center of this linear layout. Now, I will drag in a text view into this linear layout. And obviously, within the linear layout, it goes right into the middle here. So this text view, I'm going to name it as song list. And for this text view, I will set the text to be song name, so that it's more easy for us to recognize what this text view is supposed to be carrying. It doesn't matter, it's going to be overwritten anyway later on. And the text size, let us set it to 14 SP, so that the song title is a little bit larger. The song title is a little bit larger. If you think that 14 is too small, maybe let's set it to 60. A little bit larger. And then save the playlist item in here. Now, once you do that, then you go back to playlist, and then you notice that you can save this. Okay. I think we have been using the song title in one of those other layouts. So let me rename this as inside the playlist item. Let me, instead of calling it, okay, I called it song list. Okay, complaint gone. All right, now that we have supplied the list of songs to in the form of an adapter, let me document what I have just done here. So I would say display it in the list view. Okay, now technically we would be able to make it work, except that it's not going to be much use at this moment. So let's try and see if it works correctly. And see what the result is going to be when we click on the playlist button in there. Now, Okay, when it comes up, now the new interface should include the playlist button here. So let's go ahead and then play around by clicking on the playlist button here and see what happens. Voila! As you can see, the list of the 2 songs are now displayed in the list view. Okay, this seems too crowded here, so let me add in a little bit of padding for each of these so that it's a bit more nicer to look at. So we'll go back to the playlist item, and then inside here for my linear layout, let me add in a padding around the linear layout of 10 dp. That should make it a bit more comfortable to see those items on the screen. Okay, so one more time. Let's see how it looks like. It should look a lot more comfortable on the screen at this moment. One more time. Of course, the list items are now not actionable, so we need to do something more to the code in order to make those list items actionable at this moment. So this is much better display of the items. So you can now select any one of them. Of course, nothing happens at the moment because we have not declared the OnClick listeners for these items. Of course, for list items, there is a different way of doing it. I'll show it to you in the next segment of this lab. Okay, so now the basic framework is already now in place for us to have a list of songs in there. Now, if you want to add more songs, you just simply pull in one more song into the raw folder, one or more songs into the raw folder, and then add the corresponding information into the strings.xml file, into the 2 arrays that I showed you earlier, and then the whole program should still work appropriately, listing all the remaining songs that you can add. Now, obviously, a typical music player doesn't work that way, so this is just for demonstration that we can actually create list views like this. Now, what we have left when we briefly paused was the fact that we are now able to display the list of items in here, but when they are clicked, nothing is happening. So we need to go in and add the OnClick listeners so that correspondingly an action can be taken when those list items are clicked. So in order to do that, first, I need to get a reference to the list view. Okay, so that I do by saying list view. Let me just declare a variable list view LV and then say get. As I said, in Android, a list activity includes a default list view in its user interface. So that's why you don't have to explicitly declare a user interface XML file and then include it in here, because there is a default list view already in place for the list activity. This sort of simplifies the creation of the code for situations where you need a simple list view. Now, for this list view, now we need to include a OnClick listener. Now, in this particular case, it is called set OnItemClickListener. It's not called an OnClick listener anymore. It's an OnItemClick, because a list view includes a set of items that are displayed. Depending on specific item that is clicked, we need to be able to invoke the appropriate code in here. Okay. Now, obviously, this listener in here, we should have a reference to the code. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an inline code in here. So I'm just going to go ahead and insert the code right there, because this is the only place where we are going to make use of that code. So I'll just simply type it in here. I would say new on item OnItemClickListener. Okay, so now I need to create some methods for the new OnItemClickListeners here. So as you notice, it complains that we need to create a new class. Now let's go ahead and then declare this the new OnItemClickListener here. Now notice that I have this new OnItemClickListener in here, and then so I will import the corresponding one, adapter view OnItemClickListener, because that's the adapter view that I used there. So ArrayAdapter that I used there, so that's why I need to do that. Now again, it's complaining and then says add unimplemented method. So I'm going to click on that, and then it'll insert an additional code in here to specify what is being done. So this particular method that is implemented here called OnItemClick, and this OnItemClick is going to return me some variables here: adapter view, arg1, arg2, and arg3. Now we can ignore the first two, it's not going to be of use to us. The third one that is returned, I'll rename it as position, and then the long that is returned, I will rename it as ID. Okay. Now, why do I do that? The position essentially indicates the position of the item on the screen in the list view that has been indicated. So this would be 0, that will be 1, and so on. And the ID would be also of use to us later. So specifically, the position is of interest to us. So what we're going to do is we are now going to make use of the position to identify which particular song the user has selected. So I would say int song index. That is the only thing of interest to us. So this indicates which particular song has been selected. First in that list would return a position 0. The next one would return a position 1, and so on. Now I'm going to use that information to look at the song list and then return the name of the song that has been selected by the user. Okay, the title of the song that has been selected by the user. So now that I know which particular item the user has selected, I can return this value back to the music activity from here. So how do I do that? Now recall that intents allow me to send information back and forth between different activities. So this playlist activity was called by music activity with the expectation that it is going to return a result. So how do we return a result from an activity? I create an intent. Let me label it as in, and then say new intent. Again, let me say get application context, and then I'm going to go back to music. So this is a way of returning value back to the music activity through the Android framework. So I create the intent, okay, I create. So what I will do is Okay, I have to return this value to music activity, so I create an intent. Inside the intent, I would put extra information in here. So the first one would be song index, which basically indicates the position or the song and the specific song that the user selected. In addition, I'm also going to send the title of the song back so that the user doesn't have to worry about again acquiring the title elsewhere. So I will put in put extra, and then now recall that when extras are put inside an intent, how we can retrieve that value inside the code there. So the song index basically indicates the position in the array, which indicates the title of the song that has been selected. So that's why I'm returning the second value also. Now, when I'm returning a result from an activity, the penultimate statement that I need to do is set result, and then right here the first parameter that I need to supply is the code that was used when the music activity issued the intent call from there. That was 100, so I'm going to put that 100 in there and then supply the intent value in here. So that basically tells me that I'm returning the value back to the music activity. Now, once this work is done, I no longer need the playlist activity. So I can simply quit from the playlist activity. Okay? So again, before I forget, let me put in why I'm So that we'll remind ourselves why that number 100 exists here. So now, since your work is done, you want to inform the Android framework saying, I don't want to exist anymore, so get rid of me. So that you can do by calling the finish method. So this basically tells the Android framework that the work of this list activity is completed, so you can now get rid of the list activity. So that basically results in the selected song information being returned to the music activity. Now we have to go back to music activity and then receive this information inside music activity. Okay, now how do I receive information inside an activity from another activity when I started using start activity for result? For that, we have a method that that is used for this purpose called as OnItemClickListener. Now, I'm going to again use the standard way of putting in the stub code and then go in and edit the stub code. So I'll say override implement methods. Okay, and then on the activity, so I'd say override implement methods, and okay. Override implement. Okay, there you go. I have to first select it so that it knows exactly what I'm trying to do. So get down into the code and then select the on activity result. This one here. And then click on OK, and then I will include it after the onCreate method so that it's visible to me. So I will click on that and then I notice that the stub code for an activity result has been put in here. Notice that the 3 parameters coming in when the activity result comes in is the request code. This is the same code that I sent when I called that, the result code coming in. And I need to, well, technically the request code and result code should match so that I know that the value is coming in at the right point, and that is what is used, and I pass that information. And then the intent is also supplied as the 3rd parameter coming in. Now from the intent, I need to retrieve the information about the song that I have selected. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to insert the code saying if result code equal to 100, because that I have used 100 as the result code. So I'm going to ensure that it is coming in with the right value. Remember that I have 2 variables called as song index, which stores the pointer to the song, the index of the song that is being played. So the incoming value inside my intent, I will retrieve and then data get extras. Data is nothing but the intent that was used to call back to this particular activity. So I would say get. Remember that I use the key song index in playlist in order to send the position value or the song index value. So I'm going to use that to retrieve this information. Also song title, which would be data get extras, get, and the key is song title. That's what I used earlier. So now the song index and song title are properly initialized to the song that I just selected. Now, what am I supposed to do? I have to reset the player because it is quite possible that the user may have hit the playlist button while a song is being played, or the music player might have been in the paused state and then could have caused me to invoke the playlist. It doesn't matter which one. So what I will do is, to be on the safe side, of course I need to stop the song that is being played. So I would simply reset the player. Okay. After that, I need to ensure whether the music player was in the playing state or in the paused condition. So for that, remember I have the variable play pause that tracks this information. So if it is in the playing, if play pause is true, that means that this music player is in the paused state and waiting for me to hit the play button so that I can play the song, and vice versa. So if not, so which means that the play pause value is false, then I would set to indicate that the music player is now ready to play, basically. So the play pause variable is indicating me whether it is ready to play or ready to pause, so that when I hit the play button, I know exactly how to interpret the clicking of the play button. Okay. After this, I will start the song. Remember, we have already created this method called StartSong, song index, song title. Okay. So with that, now my player is ready to help me to select songs and then play them. So let's go ahead and save this and then see how this program works. crossed fingers, if everything has been done properly, the player should work as we expect and allow me to select songs and then play the songs properly. So now, currently the player is initialized to start Man with the Blues. I'm going to select the other song. When I click on the other song, it's now in the paused state, the play button appropriately ready for me to play. When I click on the play button, it starts playing the song. I can pause and then I can go back and select the other song. And then when I come back, notice that the song title has been changed. And then when I click on the play button, the proper song is being played. All well and good, right? Only one minor quibble that I have with this implementation. Ideally, I would be happy if this button can directly indicate to me whether it is currently in the playing state or in the paused state. So that is the next little modification that I'm going to do to the music player in order to enable me to directly visually see whether I can click this button and whether the button allows me to pause what is playing, or whether the button will allow me to play the song whose title is currently displayed in the title up here. Okay, so that's the last change that I'm going to make to this code, and then that'll complete this particular lab exercise. So as I mentioned, the last quibble that I had was the fact that this particular button is not clearly, explicitly displaying to me whether the song is currently playing or whether it is in the paused state. Of course, by listening, I can tell for sure, but that's not the point. I want to be able to visually see whether it is in the paused, whether I can pause the song being played or whether I can play the song that is currently selected. Now, to help me to do that, what I need to do is whenever I click on the play button, I want to change that play button image to a pause button image. That I can easily do by simply changing the drawable that I'm using to display the particular button. So I would say r dot drawable dot. Remember, I used image button play for when I created that button. I'm going to change that to image button pause. So this basically tells me that when the player starts playing, the button is going to be changed to the pause button, so that when I click on the pause button, it's going to stop. Similarly, when the player is in the paused state, when I hit the pause button, then I want to change that button to the play button. So I can do that here. In this code, I have already distinguished the two circumstances, so I just need to add in the appropriate appropriate statements here. r.drawable dot image button play. Okay, now, so this is the place where I am changing the value of the play pause button. Recall that there is one more place where I am doing that. So in that circumstance also, I would need to update the play pause. That was in the situation when play pause is false. I am changing play pause to true. So at that point also, I would have to repeat exactly the same code from here. So I'm just going to copy that code and then go back here and notice that this is where I was doing that point, where I noticed that I was changing the play pause value to true at this point to indicate if the song is being played and it just got paused because I did the reset of the player. So then I need to appropriately recognize that value. So at this point also the button would have been displaying the pause button. So I'll have to change it back to the play button. So let me include that code that I just copied from that other location here. And then let's see how this works. One more time, let's test out all the features of this modified player. When it comes back up on the screen, we'll go through a few of those motions to understand exactly how those buttons work. So notice that currently it is in the paused state, so that's why this button is showing the play button. So when I hit the play button, the song starts playing, and notice that the button has been changed to the pause button. Now when I hit the pause button, it immediately turns into the play button. So notice that little modification allows me to change the image resource and then gives a very nice user interface feeling to the user. So now let's test out that currently the song is playing. I hit on the playlist, I select another song and then come back. Notice that when I hit the playlist button, this was in the paused state, but when I came back, the new song that I selected is now displayed, and this is in the paused state with the play button being displayed here, so that I can play the song. Perfect. So we are done with this lab that allows me to create the music player and then design a pretty nice user interface and allows me to control the music player very well. In the next lab, we will look at enhancing this music player with many other features as we go along. So this is the end of this lab, and then we'll continue